that we think of when we have hammered nails and all those other things when we're building. But what we are building something, and what we're building is an opportunity for us to protect ourselves, our communities, and our families, etc. Okay? But really, no matter what conversation we have, no technological intervention is really going to 100% be the magic bullet. So PrEP, PEP, whatever technology you use is not going to be a magic bullet, right? Because it's only one part of a bigger response. And part of that response is to really be able to talk about all the barriers that make it difficult at times for women, for us to protect ourselves. I say for us, for women, whatever, that's me. I'm including myself in this. Because no matter how we really look at it, we are all at risk. If we're sexually active, we're at risk. And women in most countries, really all women, are at a disadvantage regardless of where you live. So these structural issues are the issues that may interrupt many of the reasons that may interrupt and look at one of the reasons why we protect ourselves, right? So our social power, right? Many women, we are often not in a position to really negotiate how we protect ourselves. And sometimes we often unknowingly allow men to make the choice for us just by not even making a choice.
Staying home to take care of us, and sometimes other responsibilities take, priority, like children, over like someone's sexual health.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. Thank you.
When we follow traditional gender roles and gender socialization, there's always the boys will be boys and women are not sexual beings, and they don't really talk about women's sexuality in a healthy way that empowers their sexuality and allows them to speak about what's going on with really sexual.
Great. Thank you for that. Can anyone add to that? Yes.
Not for all women.
Yeah.
Like, for some women that are like when you're like a drug user, you're alcoholic, you're drunk or you're high, you don't think about, I'm gonna use protection. You just go for it and you go, you don't think about it. So that's another reason why I think women don't protect themselves as much if they're drug users or alcoholics.
Right. Thank you for that. That's right. That's part of our experience too. Yes.
And just to say, also if you're a drug user or an alcohol user, and you think about, I do think about talking about things with my partner, but it kind of breaks the mood. So yeah, I just kind of go for it.
Yeah, right. Well, right. It's difficult to bring up, let's be responsible while you're naked. That's very difficult. Right. Right. We're in that moment. We're in this space together. We've decided that we're going to have this moment together. And stop. Let's talk about safety. Right. That can be a buzzkill. That can definitely be a buzzkill. But imagine if you had a range of tools that can protect you, right? Imagine when we think of a toolbox, we think of all these tools being in one place that are accessible, right? So this could be the tool. Imagine a whole toolbox of available methods that really impact the spread of HIV or HIV transmission and acquisition, right? So looking at technologies that are before transmission, right? What happens before transmission? If you're, right, all of these things, counseling, testing, circumcision, PrEP, all treatment as prevention. We've heard some of these words throughout our time together, right? The point of transmission. What can happen in that moment of contact that really reduces the possibility of acquisition or transmission? And even after. There's some things I can do after I've potentially been exposed, right? If you were in the workshop earlier, you probably heard Susan talk about PEP. And you've also heard LaShonda Spencer earlier talk about treatment as prevention as a routine part of the work she does within couples, right? And all of these things, the dark prints in the black dark print on this slide, all of these technologies are currently available to you. Every last one of these is available. The ones in the lighter ones that you really can't kind of see are in development. These are all being researched right now and in some form, and this is what our future could look like. Okay. So why is it important to know your status?
Well, there's knowing why you pee all the time.
Knowing where you pee all the time? Is that what you
pee all the time. Because,
explain it so they can know it.
STDs
Okay.
cause you to go to the bathroom like often or burn or all that stuff, and you know, when that comes up, you're like, yeah, there's something wrong. So, you know, it's good to know your status to prevent that, or at least why it's happening.
I see another hand. What you think?
Yeah.
What you think? Me? No, you're good. Were you done? Go for
Whatever.
it. I'm sorry.
Peace
Go.
of mind.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. We're good.
It's fine.
You're good.
Peace of mind is also very,
Peace
very
of mind is
pleasurable when knowing your status, not transmitting to everybody that you sleep with.
Peace of mind is always helpful. Yes.
I would think so you don't pass it on to others.
Right. So really being able to think about yourself and the community that you live in, or the pool of people you may be intimate with, right? So it's not only about you knowing your status and it being about you, but it's you knowing your status and how that status affects, not infects, but affects, right? The rest of the community, right? So what are let's think about some really good reasons to test. And I'm sorry it's so light in here. I mean, the light is so bright in here. You can't, but you may be able to see. But some of the good reasons for testing, the really good reasons for testing that I always tell people is, what if you start a new relationship, right? Meeting someone new and testing gives you the opportunity to really protect each other, right? Because the other, supporting a friend, right? I've been working in HIV education for, I think this is almost my 18th, 19th year. And sometimes I'm able to get people to test just because they're supporting someone else with knowing their status. They themselves may feel confident in their own status, but they'll go because they'll support you as their friend, right? It's time. Right? I know my status, or so I think I do. I haven't tested for a couple years, but I think I know my status. We also see that as well, right? But in those times since you've last tested, what has happened? What has occurred? How many people have you encountered? What has gone on in your life and in your experiences during the course of that time, right? Staying informed, right? You know, I know, and so we can protect ourselves along the way. Because you already know your status, you want to encourage other people to know, keeping you informed, as well as making sure that people live a healthier life. When was the last time is listed on here? Because all the time you assume you're negative, not necessarily, like I just said a minute ago. When was the last time? You don't know. You just, right? If you're sexually active, you may be monogamous with one person, and that's okay, right? Just like we said earlier, many clinics don't test women that they perceive are to be monogamous, right? So when I go get tested, people go, well, how relationship are you in? Yes, I'm in a relationship. I've been with my spouse for X number of years. Okay, well, why are you really here? Well, I'm really here because I want to know my status, and that should be good enough, right? But often it's not, right? Often it's because I'm not a man that they would question what I'm really doing. So then I'd have to say, well, maybe I have slept with someone else, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not in a monogamous relationship, because one of us is. At least one of us. Right. I can protect myself against the things that I do not know. Right? Did you know the status of the person you just met? Do you know? Do you know the status of the person you just met? Right? And want PrEP. Wanting PrEP requires you to know your HIV status. Right? We've learned that earlier in our conversation. We don't have to go deep. But as a part of your PrEP experience, if you decide to seek PrEP, if you choose to seek PrEP, HIV and STI routine screening will be a regular part of that experience. And in order for you to refill your prescriptions, you will also be screened at those times too. So you'll be screened coming in and at each refill and at your consult and upon request as well. Because it's important as you think about using PrEP that you are protecting yourself against STIs. Okay? So it's good that I have a couple people in the room that I know are very up to date on all this information, because I want them to talk about this, right? So STIs, I did not put all 25 different diseases on this flyer because there are over 25 different sexually transmitted infections that are possible, right? So an STI or STD, whatever, depending on when you lived, right? It's possible to have. We know that it's possible to have one without knowing it. We know that often women who are maybe exposed to that are exposed to men who are whipped by men or other women who don't know that they have it. And it's important to think about it being sleeping with men and women because we also know that some of these STIs are passed through skin-to-skin contact, right? So HPV, genital herpes, syphilis are all transmittable just by skin-to-skin contact. So when you think about what Roxanne talked about with sex being about friction and heat, when you're rubbing together and you're exposing, you also are creating an area that makes you vulnerable to STDs or STIs, depending on when you last lived. Yes.
Also, it's extremely important, like as a patient with a clinic provider, that they think outside the box and not just do urine testing for chlamydia and gonorrhea, because they can do urine and gonorrhea testing and it's negative, but they could have pharyngeal gonorrhea and they're not doing the testing for that.
Do you know what pharyngeal means?
In their
For the
throat.
people in the back? Okay.
In their throat.
Okay.
Or rectal gonorrhea.
Right.
And they're not doing those tests. So then this person goes in and gets tested and they're like, oh, you're negative, everything's fine. But they haven't done the throat swab or the rectal swab.
I was wondering about that. Because
Right. And you shouldn't
ask.
I know, but you shouldn't
Right.
have to ask.
You shouldn't have to ask, but you might.
Right.
Right. So we know in LA County, and I'm coming to you because I'm coming to you on the next slide. Because we know in LA County that there is a problem with STIs, right? So even if you test for an STI, you do the urine test, you do the urine screening, you have more knowledge than you had going in, right? But you don't know. But like she just said, that doesn't matter if your rectum or your throat is exposed or infected. That urine test is not going to capture it, right? Yes.
See, my doctor said it
Yes.
was.
Well, you,
Like, what is HPV and how do you get it? I've never really heard about it.
HPV, human papillomavirus. Who wants to go for it?
Genital warts?
Genital warts.
That is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, genital warts. Yes, I see you in the back.
No, it has genital warts.
Yeah.
And HPV actually, just I'm gonna try
Talk.
to make it as basic as possible.
Please.
HPV, because my coworker making commentary. HPV is a series of 63 different viruses. It's a family of viruses, all of them body specific. Now, in regards to, when we talk about people born with vaginas or vulvas, it's important to do, if you can do self-mirror checks within your vulva, your vaginal canal, just to get an idea if there's any lesions or, any sort of bumps or anything growing inside.
Right. That also goes for syphilis and herpes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we as a part of getting to know your new FC2 and spending time learning to use your FC2, looking at your anatomy is going to teach you more. Is going to teach you a lot. If you have not stopped and looked and learned, this is an opportune time for you to do that. Because if you can take really good care of it, you can teach someone else to do it too.
And HPV, that's why they recommend caps because HPV sometimes does